Miami bands of the 70s present Open House Radio, taking you back to the sounds of the open houses with DJ Alex Gutierrez in the mix and South Florida's own, your host, Mike in the Night.
Welcome back to OHR.
The acclamation was unanimous. The crowd precipitated itself toward the chapel, and the happy Pope of Fools was led out in triumph. And now the surprise and admiration of the people redoubled. They found the wondrous grin to be but his ordinary face, or rather, his whole person was a grimace.
This week, one of the most anticipated shows we have ever done here on OHR. A very personal interview with a man who shaped the sound of disco music in the 70s, as well as laying a foundation for all future dance music. He didn't just release songs. He released epic and lavish productions, many of which took up entire sides of record albums. Please welcome to OHR, Alec Costandinos.
Alec, how are you?
I'm very well. Thank you, Alex.
Thank you for taking the time to join us here today.
Yes, Alec. Thanks for being here.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Let's start things off with one of your biggest hits and one of our favorite record covers. Here is Love and Kisses with 1977's I Found Love. On OHR, I'm Mike in the Night, and he's DJ Alex Gutierrez with Alec Costandinos in the studio. On OHR, and with us today, the man behind many of disco's most memorable productions, Alec Costandinos.
Alec, I was wondering, how did the idea come about to incorporate all this instrumentation? I mean, all the songs back then basically just used drums, guitar, bass, an occasional keyboard. Were you influenced by any other styles of the time?
There are two major influences in whatever I did with music, other than classical, of course. The number one influence was Motown. The second influence is Italian pop music. In general, if you could generalize, Italian music is melody-based. Motown music, although there's some magnificent melodies, is rhythm-based. I took the two together, and the result is what you know.
When did you start hearing the word disco used?
Alex, the word disco is just an abbreviation of discotheque. It's been around forever. I mean, there were discotheques in the 60s and the 50s. No, actually the 60s. And so it abbreviated to disco. I started hearing the word disco way before the thump, 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 four on the floor sound.
Alec, when did the idea come about for taking a subject such as the Hunchback of Notre Dame and Romeo and Juliet and creating an entire musical production around it?
This has a lot to do with my school education. Up until age 12, I attended French schools, French Catholic schools to be more precise. And of course, they taught us all the classics, Émile Zola, Victor Hugo, Balzac, etc. Victor Hugo, however, not that they put any emphasis on him, but there were poems, one poem in particular that we had to learn. It's called After the Battle, Après la Bataille, about a hero and blah, blah, blah. And many, but it instilled in me the curiosity to read Victor Hugo. But the Hunchback was not taught to 12-year-olds. Of course, they couldn't. A priest with a gypsy, it doesn't really fly. But I read it outside of the school curriculum, and of course, it blew my mind. Romeo and Juliet, which is the result of me attending Irish Catholic schools in Cairo, believe it or not.
Wow.
Yes, Alex, we had Irish Catholic schools in Cairo, where they, on the other hand, were very, very insisting on Shakespeare. Not Romeo and Juliet so much, but mostly Julius Caesar, Hamlet, Merchant of Venice, etc. But again, they instilled in me the love of literature, the love of reading, which I still do to this day. I read as much as I possibly can, especially on those long flights. And Romeo and Juliet, I read again outside of the school curriculum, and most impressive, There again, you see a priest who gives them the poison, and one is supposed to be dead, but he isn't dead, and etc. There are certain things you can teach to 14 and 15-year-olds, and certain things you don't. Nevertheless, that's how my interest for The Hunchback and Romeo and Juliet began.
Alec, tell me a little bit about Trident Studios and its unheard of 48 tracks at the time.
Trident has a humongous significance. Trident Studios has a humongous significance in my musical career. It started a long time ago. I think it was 1970 or 1971. There was a wonderful vocalist in France called Gilbert Montagnier, great vocalist. Still is a great vocalist, but I think he's got a government position right now in the arts. I wrote a couple of songs for him, and at the time I didn't know, but he was recording his stuff. His producer would take him to London, and they would record in London. And strangely enough, my publisher said, since you've got a couple of songs on the album, we're going to go, if they allow us for a minute, we're going to go to the studio and see what happens. I mean, see how the recording goes and this and that and the other. So off we went to London. I was living in Paris at the time. And the minute I walked into the control room and I heard the audio coming out of those speakers, all I knew is that for the rest of my life I wanted to record in this type of quality sound. It just blew me away. I had nothing even close to that in Paris at the time, although since then I think Paris has become another musical capital in terms of studios, but at the time we didn't. I was simply blown away. So as soon as the opportunity showed up, long before quote-unquote disco, as soon as I had the opportunity to go back to Trident, and I did, I of course would go there. The second opportunity was given to me, believe it or not, from a Romanian lady.
Wow, Romania.
Yes, Alex, a Romanian lady. She was doing a musical which ended up being called Rock and Roll Wolf. The original title in Romanian was Mother Goat and the Wolf. And it was a gigantic production with the Red Army and ice skaters from Russia, ice skaters from Romania, and the participation of the French whatever. I don't know if it was a French company or the French government. I don't remember at the time, but I think it was 1972 or 73. I can't exactly remember. It was just a little bit before the recordings of Romeo and Juliet. And I went back to Trident and we recorded the entire English version of that musical at Trident. And once again, it was bliss. Recording at Trident was fabulous. And of course, I got to know Peter Kelsey, the engineer, better. And he eventually became my, he's the engineer I used them primarily. He recorded most of my albums and mixed them actually with me. I first recorded I Found Love at Trident, of course. And at the time they were just equipped like most studios with a 24-track analog tape machine. And when I finished the recording and finished the mixing, the manager at the time, I think his name was Peter Booth, told me that they had plans to go 48-track. And that was the first time I heard that expression. I said, what do you mean 48-track? And he said, we're going to synchronize 2 tape recorders together. It seemed odd to me because I had already tried this, but of course without a synchronizer, which of course is impossible. In Paris at Barclay Studios, I tried to synchronize 2 4-tracks. And of course it didn't work because after about a few seconds, the one tape recorder drifts and the other one, and it's just impossible without a synchronizer. But technology had evolved, and he said we have a synchronizer now and we can link 2 machines together. So when we say 48 tracks, it's not actually 48 tracks, it's 46, because you need 1 track on each tape machine for what we call the code that synchronizes both machines. So I said, okay, if you go 48 tracks, I'll try it. And it just so happened that the dates that I had booked for the recording of Romeo and Juliet coincided with the installation of the 48-track system. So I was fortunate. This is strictly coincidence. I didn't plan it that way. So when I got to London, the manager said, okay, we're ready for 48 tracks. And we started recording. And the thing is, I don't want to get technical, too technical, but when you record a mass of strings like first violin, second violins, cellos, etc., you have to make certain concessions and you have to make certain compromises. Depending on how many tracks, you can't put violins A and violins B and violins whatever you have on separate tracks, because when you had 24 tracks, you couldn't do it. However, when you had 46 tracks, you had a lot more leeway. And that's precisely what we did. And what this does, now for the technically oriented people, there are no phase problems during the recording. I'll stop on that because I don't want to bore the listeners with but this was actually, you can actually perceive it when we were playing back the 46 tracks. There was more depth to the sound. There was more, I wouldn't say three-dimensional impression, but there was an impression that we couldn't get with just 24 tracks. That's how it happened. It was a coincidence, and of course it was the first time it was ever used, and that's it.
Alec, I consider Romeo and Juliet to be the example of disco at its finest. Are you comfortable with the label disco, or would you prefer something else?
First of all, Mike, I thank you very much for considering Romeo and Juliet as being an example of disco at its finest. That's I really thank you, because there are so many wonderful disco tracks. Secondly, I am absolutely comfortable with the term disco. How could it be otherwise? That's the reason why we're having this interview. No, I don't prefer anything else. I very much like the term disco, and it's a pity that some people seem to consider disco as a negative term, because I would like to draw your attention that most of the quote-unquote rock and rollers at the time, who saw the disco wave overtaking everything, actually recorded dance tracks but didn't call them disco. But it was exactly that. That's all it was. It's just a deviation, a very slight deviation from regular disco, but they had to record and keep up with the times. I have absolutely no problem with disco. In fact, I'm rather proud of the term disco. Not only because it's a part of musical history, but it's a great and significant part of musical history. And then in addition to that, a musician that delves into disco has also done other things. In my case, I've written ballads, I've written scores for movies, I've written rock and roll songs, just the ordinary pop songs. So disco was in my palette for many years, and it continues to be in my palette, and I'm actually very happy with the term disco, and I hope it survives all the negatives that some people may have towards it.
On OHR, here is disco music at the top of its game. There is no finer example than Romeo and Juliet. On OHR, I'm Mike in the Night, along with DJ Alex Gutierrez and our very special guest, Alec R. Costandinos.
AlexGutierrezMiami.com.
Check out the website and listen to
Open House Radio.
now, absolutely free 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, with me, Mike in the Night.
And me, DJ Alex Gutierrez.
We're back with more of Alec R. Costandinos. Is there anything in the works now, Alec?
Oh, Mike, there are several things in the works. First of all, I'm dedicating the next 12 to 18 months into remixing, if not all, most of my 70s albums. When I say remixing, I mean it in the traditional sense of the word. I'm taking the original instrumentation, digitizing it, in other words, putting it in digital form, and making it available on CD. As with every CD I'm releasing, it'll be a compilation, and this first CD that I call the 2011 mixes, it's Romeo and Juliet and the Hunchback, plus 2 remixed tracks, but this time in the contemporary sense of the word. In other words, completely redone and re-edited. One of the remixes on this first album is by a gentleman called Leonidas, and I've never met him. We just met through the internet. He sent me the track and I said, fine, let's do something about it. And Leonidas of Samos, or DJ Leonidas, did a wonderful job on Romeo and Juliet. The second track that I've included on this first compilation is by Don Ray, who decided to do a remix of Act 1 of Romeo and Juliet. So all the upcoming albums will contain the original instrumentation of certain tracks and their remixes as often as possible. For instance, a young man that I've never met, Jimmy Michaels, is remixing You'll Never Know How Much I Love You. We haven't decided yet whether we're going to release it in the form that he originally showed me or the form that I haven't listened to yet that he just sent me.
This next track was probably responsible for starting the popular phrase TGIF, as well as the title song from the movie. Here is Love and Kisses with Thank God It's Friday on OHR. I'm Mike in the Night. He's DJ Alex Gutierrez, and we are with Alec R. Costandinos.
Friday. Thank God it's Friday.
Alec, tell me about your website.
The website, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk about it. The website is just a plain, ordinary, simple website to keep the people that follow my musical career, to keep them informed of what's coming soon, what I've been doing. But of course, I mean, you can have your own website, especially to order CDs and download MP3s, but we talk a lot on Facebook as well, which has become the de facto social network, of course. Nevertheless, the website is important for certain announcements when certain CDs are ready. And let me open a parenthesis here. The reason why my website hasn't been updated regularly, it's because I work alone. Let's make this very clear. I work alone. I mix alone. I master the CDs alone. Print them. I work alone. Except for the mailings, I have no assistants. It's just a one-man band. And this is why sometimes I don't update quickly enough, because I haven't had the time to do this or that, because mixing takes an awful lot of time and I can't work more than a certain number of hours a day, etc. But I do work alone. So, and I don't fake my autographs, and I don't fake any signature that I put on a CD. It's all me. So rest assured, there are no people signing for me, and all the CDs are burnt by me, and everything's done by me. Okay, me, I, and myself. Okay, it may sound selfish, but it isn't. It's actually considerate. I don't want anybody doing my work. I want to make my own mistakes. The website is www.costandinos.com. Thank you for your visit. I appreciate it.
On OHR, from the production of Alec R. Costandinos, here is Love and Kisses with How Much I Love You. I'm Mike in the Night, and he's DJ Alex Gutierrez.
You'll never know how much I love you in my dreams.
Well, Alec, this has truly been a wonderful experience.
It really has.
Thank you for sharing with us here at Open House Radio.
Thank you very much, Alec.
Alex and Mike, Open House Radio has always supported me. It's my pleasure to be here. Very much my pleasure to be here.
Why don't you leave us with your favorite track?
I really can't mention a favorite track. I think I'll mention a track that's appropriate for our interview today, which has nothing to do with Romeo and Juliet, has nothing to do with The Hunchback, has nothing to do with I Found Love or all those songs, or Thank God It's Friday. If you don't mind, because we're smack in the disco era again, I wouldn't mind if you played 54. Thank you to all, and thank you everyone at Open House Radio. Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Mike. And thank you to all the listeners for your patience. Bye-bye.
On OHR, I'm Mike in the Night, and he's DJ Alex Gutierrez. Exclusively on Never Heard Before, Alec R. Costandinos with 54. Till next time.
I know a place where the stars shine in thousands of colors.